Hey, Back of the Pack podcast coming at you, number 2 with the Scout Mountain Race Report. This is the second year I attempted Scout Mountain. I was bib number 4, and I received a DNF, my second ever DNF. I received my first DNF at Scout Mountain last year when I was bib number 2. This is an extremely difficult course. It has a ton of climbing. I'm going to walk you through it. All these ups and downs, especially this final climb where you're going to do 1/3 of the elevation gain after mile 79. That is going up Scout Mountain to mile 89. That is the crux of the whole thing. So, it's a great race. It's one of the most beautiful courses. It's in Pocatello, Idaho. It's actually 102.2, now 104 miles, not maybe even more. They just keep adding bonus miles. The race director is Luke Nelson. He is one of the sweetest, most kind-hearted people. I think my favorite part of both years was at the pre-race mandatory meeting for the 100-milers. Luke tears up when he's talking about his volunteers. And this race is 100% volunteer. It is has some of the best aid stations, some of the best volunteers, most encouraging, positive. It feels like the whole thing is a party vibe from the minute you start till the very end, where the final finishers are coming in between 10 and midnight to the finish line. My other favorite thing about this race is there's free camping for the 100-mile runners at the finish line. So you can roll in, go to bed, wake up, do your orientation meeting, run the race, and when you finish, you've got a 50-foot walk to go back to bed, which, if you're driving home, is super important. I'm going to try not to stop the gimbal with my hand signals. I keep shutting it off, so I got to stop doing that. Anyway, you will have to find a ride to the start line. It's not very difficult to find a ride. There's a lot of carpooling going on from the finish area. No crew vehicles can come in and out of the finish area because it is the finish line, so you've got to drop a vehicle there and leave it there. It can't be coming in and out during the day on Saturday. But the race starts at noon on Friday, up lead draw. So you grab a ride, jump in with somebody. Lead draw has a little creek, and off to the right of the start line there's some shade, so I usually hang out in the shade, maybe get my hat wet, because as soon as the sun comes up in Pocatello, it gets extremely hot. There is little to no shade on this course. It is 68% shrubs, grassland, almost no timber. So that's great for the views. It's bad for the heat. So you start in from lead draw into a climb, a 1,500-foot climb in 5 miles. It doesn't really feel like you're climbing. It's very gradual, super deceptive. The first year I tried to run the whole thing and definitely spiked my heart rate early on, which was a mistake. Took it a little easier this year. You top out after that 5 miles up before Walker Creek, and you hit this beautiful single track that is a side hill that you're basically going to follow this long side hill for 15 miles to Goodenough Creek. And it's one of my favorite, most runnable sections of the course, and you're so fresh, and you immediately are like confronted with the overwhelming wildflowers of the course. There is every variety, and they're just so large, and there's just acres of them. It's unreal how many balsam roots there are and larkspurs. It's one of my favorite things about the race is the wildflowers and the view. You're looking down into the Pocatello Valley just for huge portions of the race, giving you great sunrises and sunsets. Then you're going to do a little up and down all the way to Goodenough Creek. where you hit the first major aid station. There's a drop bag there if you want it. Pretty minimal for needs at that point. But yeah, the volunteers, like I said, are super encouraging. Some of the best volunteers I've ever encountered. They're super on top of it, filling water, electrolytes, getting you food. So you grab and go from Goodenough Creek, and then you're going to do this huge climb up Old Tom. And you're going to get almost to 10,000 feet. You're going to be right around 9,000 feet. It's a grueling, never-ending climb up Old Tom. And you'll hit an intersection once you hit the ridge line. And it's listed that there's a water-only drop on the way up and the way down. But the water drop has actually been almost a mile down the ridge from the intersection, both times I've done it. So you're not able to fill up water on the way up the ridge. So you need to bring enough water from Goodenough until the second water-only station. So instead of bringing enough water for 3.2 miles, you're bringing enough water for 6.3. It's full exposure in the sun on a bald ridge at elevation with a lot of wind usually. The first year I was there, a storm rolled in. There's a lot of stories about thunderstorms rolling in on that ridge, and there is a race rule that if thunderstorms roll in, you do have to get off the ridge and into cover or out of harm's way and let that pass by. Luckily, both times I escaped that. The Old Tom climb is an out and back, and you got to get one of these beautiful pink bracelets on top to make sure to prove that you went there. You are supposed to return that bracelet when you finish, but I still have yet to figure out what you're supposed to do with this bracelet when you don't finish. So last year, on my first DNF, I got home and realized I still had the bracelet, so I wore the bracelet for an entire year, wore it to the race, and carried it up Old Tom, and I gave it to the guy on top of Old Tom, and it was very faded. And then he gave me a new one, and I really thought I would finish for most of the race, so I didn't think I'd have to wear this again for a whole year, but I guess I'm wearing a pink bracelet this year. If you've got the energy and your legs are still a little bit fresh, the run down the ridgeline of Old Tom is a phenomenal run. It's so beautiful, 360-degree views of multiple peaks. It's fully exposed. It's just wonderful. This year, I was running with an injury, a knee injury that translated into a lot of ankle pain. And I was not able to run when I was coming down that ridge. I was really limping pretty hard. But then you're going to hit that water-only station and you're going to refill. And on both the water-only stations, they ask you to only take as much as you need. And that's imperative because there's a lot of runners and they're carrying the water up by hand. And once it's gone, it's gone. So the first water station, luckily there was water in it, and I refilled there for what a lot of people think is the best part of the whole run, all the way down to South Fork and West Fork aid stations. It's like a 7-mile downhill on an old 2-track 4-wheeler road, and it's as much what they call hero dirt as you're ever going to see. It is extremely runnable, even when you're injured. So that's probably the best pace. If you're going to make up time in this race, this is probably the best place to do it. And it is some of the only shade you're going to get during the race. So you've got cooler temperatures, super good trail/dirt road conditions, and you're still side hilling through some of the most beautiful wildflowers you've ever seen. There's a lot of wildlife on course. You know, I've seen deer both years. See a lot of sign for elk. We saw a bull snake, a rattlesnake. There's snakes in the area. So you're going to go into West Fork where you have, there's actually drop bags available at South Fork and West Fork. The first year I just had one at West Fork. I threw one in at South Fork this year and did not use it. They are not separated by much. It's only from South Fork to West Fork 7 miles. It depends on if you think you'll need anything. This year, I apparently left my phone at South Fork or dropped it somewhere shortly after, because for the rest of the race, I had no phone. Which, when you like to take videos or call your wife, it really sucks to not have a phone. Plus, their emergency plan is not to call 911, it's to call this here phone number that instead of calling 911, because Luke Nelson, the race director, is actually the coordinator for the local search and rescue. So if you were to call 911, they would just call him. So they're just cutting out the middleman. It's not very often that the race director is the head of the local search and rescue. But I didn't have a phone, so it's a good thing I didn't need any rescuing. You go then from South Fork, from then to West Fork, and then there's a water-only station before Gibson Jack. And I'm trying to remember, I totally missed that water-only station. It had gotten dark at West Fork. I was hoping to be there, looks like at 10 p.m. And I think I was close. I was pretty much on track with my pace up until West Fork. I missed the water-only station there, and so I had 12 miles with no aid, no water. But the sun had gone down, so I didn't drink nearly as much water, even though I was carrying a full, way too much, 3 or 4 liters, 2 bottles and a bladder. I probably should have brought less. And then, yeah, you got Gibson Jack in the middle of the night. It's a great surprise. It's one of my favorite aid stations. It's got a lot of room, a lot of food. It's got a hot option. I had broth. They do have, when they say potatoes, they're canned potatoes. They are the weirdest thing. They're pre-cooked canned potatoes. I'm not a huge fan of them. They had some great quesadillas. They had some bacon. Those are my 2 favorites. They've got pickles. They've got Coke. So if I get Coke, ice, pickles, potato chips, quesadilla, bacon, any combination of those things, I'm happy. So I can live without ramen, which I brought my own ramen. I just put some in every drop bag and then had them add broth to it, which was better than the potatoes. So then you're going up and over to Cussack Creek. Yeah, you're kind of doing, all through the night, you're doing like a decent 1,500 foot-ish, 1,000 to 1,500 foot climb, then some side hill up and down, then a descent to an aid station. You do that again, then you do it again to Cussack Creek. You're crossing these ridge lines. There's great stars. Both years I ran it, the moon was only partial and went down, about midnight or 1 in the morning. So then you have 0 moonlight. So wonderful stars, your high elevation. The Cussack Creek aid station is one of my favorites. I think it's put on by some local volunteer firefighters. They have a campfire, and they have coffee. And it's good coffee. It's made in a French press. It's super strong and black. I think I had 4 cups of coffee. I was so tired this 100-miler. Never been this tired. It's the first night of any race, not a 200-miler, not the Monster 300. I was literally falling asleep standing up on the first night of a 100-miler. I don't know what exactly was going on. But I came into Cussack Creek, and they gave me all the rest of the pad thai noodles that they had cooked for the night, because they were going to switch over to daytime food. So for breakfast, I had 4 cups of coffee and a giant plate of noodles, which gave me a second wind, and then I continued downhill in a long meandering trail to City Creek, which is another one of the most runnable sections of this course. It's an open field. It has some switchbacks in it. It's a wonderful trail, and that, if you're a back of the pack runner, is where the 50-milers are going to catch up with you. And then you're going to see these super fresh, energetic, front of the pack 50 milers, which when I see them, I think, I don't think we do the same sport. I don't even think we're in the same genre of sport. Like, whatever they're doing is not what I'm doing. They look like they're running a 5K. It's amazing. They fly by you. They don't even look like they're out of breath. They're only between 7 and 13 miles into their race, and the cutoff at mile 13 at City Creek is an extremely tight 50-mile cutoff. So they are all pushing to make this cutoff. It's quite impressive. You get a lot of good jobs, a lot of good work. I tend to just step off the trail. I like the breaks. I had somebody this year give me a really hard time. They stepped off. I stepped off. And I said, no, you can go. And they were like, well, you've been going. And I'm like, I like the break. And they're like, you shouldn't think that way. Don't talk that way. I was like, I've been running for over 12 hours, 60 miles in. I could take a break and like it if I want to. I don't know why they decided they would tell me what to think, but it was funny. I think it was just a lady walking her dog, too. And then right after that, there was a gigantic, steaming, fresh pile of dog crap in the trail with flies all over it. And I was like, I wonder if that was that lady who just told me I shouldn't take a break. I was just looking for reasons not to like her. I hate it when people tell me what to do. That's so funny. City Creek Aid Station is also a wonderful aid station. It is very well manned. It's at mile 60. It is where a lot of the back of the pack runners in the 100-miler drop because out of City Creek, you're doing, in my mind, probably the second most difficult climb of the run. Old Tom is a hard climb, but you're still fairly fresh. You're only at mile 20. This is after mile 60. You're climbing 6 miles up a ridge, and you're gaining almost 3,000 feet of gain, 2,700 feet. That 2,700 feet is extremely abrupt at the end. So when you climb out of City Creek, you're right here, and you can see this last section. That's about what it looks like when you're standing on it. It's about a 50-degree slope. So the first time I went up there, I was running with a lady who had run every year of the race. And you're following this wonderful shaded, like meandering path along City Creek for probably 4 miles. It seems doable. It's not that steep. And then you veer off the trail and go into the dry creek bed, and you're on boulders and rocks. Everything's loose. It's no longer a trail. The slope pitch immediately gets steeper, and you think it's getting pretty bad, but you're still in the shade. There's patches of snow. The canyon to this creek bed's so steep it holds patches of snow for late in the year. And I remember this wonderful woman telling me, you should grab some of that snow and pack it in your hat and your neck gaiter, because as soon as we pop out here, there's zero shade, fully exposed sunlight, and we're going to go off trail up slippery grass, and it's going to be so hot. And so I followed her instructions. I got my hat packed full of snow, my neck gaiter, and I sure was glad I did, because that section is a grind. I was leaning on my trekking poles. If you were to stand up, you could literally reach out your arm and touch the ground in front of you. It is over 40 degrees. And it is off trail. And it's just a relentless climb. It's hard not to slip backwards on it. And you are quickly running out of water. The water refill is up top. And if you're a back of the pack runner, you're going to hit it when it's starting to heat up during the day, between 11 and 1 o'clock. The first year I did it, I think it was 95 degrees by that time. This year, luckily, it was only 85, 90. But I was sweating like a maniac. I definitely use electrolytes through this whole race. I even take them at night, and I take double pills in the heat of the day because I've never sweat so much. You look at people's clothing, their faces, their hats, everything's caked in salt. One of the guys I met, Sam, who finished this race, he had like salt sideburns. He had salt in his sunglass lenses. His hat was white. His shorts were white. the bottom of my running pack, the entire bottom is caked in salt. You gotta take some salt on this race. You're gonna sweat. So anyway, we hit the top of the ridge. At this point, I had really slowed down. I was definitely last place in the race because the two runners I had been running with, Bradley out of Idaho Falls and the other young lady, dropped at mile 60. Bradley's feet had fallen apart throughout the night. Ironically, what happened when I was with Bradley is I did have one blister on my pinky toe that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it finally got so big that it exploded on its own, and it sent an electrical shock through my leg that felt like I stuck my foot in a light socket, and I let out a screech. I screamed. Bradley was like, "What happened?" It was the most painful blister I think I've ever had, at least in that short term, and I couldn't put any weight on my foot. So I was running on my heel with my entire foot off the ground. And I finally, after a mile, stopped and just taped down that flap of skin. Got it to where I could run again. And the silver lining, the blessing in disguise, is that electrical shock of pain, it erased my ankle pain that I had been getting progressively worse for 50 miles, to the point where I was limping before this blister exploded. And somehow that muscle spasm released the ankle muscles, and I was able to run. It was probably the only reason I made the cutoff at City Creek, because I had been slowly falling behind. I had a 2.5-hour lead at Goodenough. I had an 1.5-hour lead at West Fork, and by the time I was at City Creek, I only had a half hour before the cutoff. And that's why, as I began to slow down on my climb, trying to take care of my feet, trying to change clothes, trying to do all the little things, the sweepers caught up with me. They were local Pocatello guys. They asked if I wanted them to hold back or if I wanted some company. I'm a people person. I told them I wanted some company. I'd been alone running for over 8 hours, so they kept me company. We hit the ridge line. The water only dropped at mile 66, and all the tanks were empty. This had happened to me the year before as well. And so luckily I'd taken extra water from City Creek. It is a tall order to carry 4 liters of water up that 3,000 foot climb. And it feels like a waste until you get up there and you still have a liter left when all the tanks are dry. I think everybody's out of water when they get there. And so when people refill, they're refilling for a 7-mile section to Elk Meadow, which is a long time in the heat of the day. So I think everybody takes a lot of water. When you're in the back of the pack, there's a chance there won't be any. So if I were a back of the pack runner running Scout Mountain, I would take extra water, which is what I did this time. And I was very thankful. I then proceeded with the sweepers down to Elk Meadow. This is also quite an awesome runnable section right here between these two peaks. There's some really good trail and road, awesome views. You are following some ridge lines at this point. But I will say that the final climb to the Elk Meadow aid station just gets to be never ending, because you hit this road, and the aid station used to be at the intersection, but then they moved it up the road and they put it at the top of a hill. And those are my most hated aid stations, where it's at the top of a hill and you're just climbing and climbing and climbing. By the time we were within 2 miles of the Elk Meadow aid station, I started doing the math and realized that it was almost impossible for me to make the cutoff, the 3:30 cutoff, at West Fork, the second time I would be at West Fork. We kept plugging away, had another lady catch up with me who had ran the 50-miler every year and had missed the cutoff this year. So we were getting up to Elk Meadow. They were packing up the aid station when we got there, but they had kept out everything we would need. Very gracious, got us everything we would need, and they let us proceed to West Fork, even though there was little to no chance we'd make the cutoff. I think we had under an hour and a half to do the 6 miles, which normally could have been doable. At this point in the race last year, I was in the same boat, but I had no injury and I was well trained, unlike this year in which I'm not trained at all. And I was able to push and pull off all 12-minute miles to West Fork and make the cutoff at West Fork, which is this not a blessing in disguise. What's the opposite of a blessing in disguise? I don't know, a wolf in sheep's clothing? To make the cutoff at West Fork, you get to continue on the race. But then you get to climb Scout Mountain and go to almost 10,000 feet. And most of that climb is very, very abrupt. And then your descent is equally abrupt. So this year, I was pretty sure I wouldn't make the cutoff. But we kept going. We ran it into West Fork. I made it to mile 79 at West Fork. I think I was 27 hours-ish in. I'd done 17,000 feet of climbing. So there's the remaining 5,000 feet of climbing or more. And ironically, when I did DNF at West Fork, they told me, I was trying to find a ride, and they told me, you don't need a ride. And I was like, why? And they said, the finish line's not even 3/4 of a mile away. Somehow, in looking at the map all those years, I never realized that at West Fork, you can drop the race and walk just around the corner, and there's the finish line. There's my truck. It's a good thing I didn't know that the first year. So yeah, I DNF'd at West Fork and walked my butt down to the finish line and tried to make sure that everybody knew I wasn't really finishing, because there was people finishing the 100-miler at that point. I got a few claps. It's really weird to walk into the finish line of a race and not be finishing. But I got back and took a nap. But that first year, I can tell you about this section. So yeah, I was chasing cutoffs. The cutoff at West Fork, it's fairly generous. I think you have to be under a 20-minute mile average pace to make that cutoff. But then you immediately go into a very intense climb from West Fork to South Scout. It's 4 miles, and you're doing 2,000 feet of gain. So it's over 300 feet per mile. It's a stout climb. I know that the first year, I really had to push to make it, and I had 6 minutes to spare at South Scout. These are the 2 times in the race that even if you make the cutoff and you keep going, even if you're not going to make the next cutoff, you just have to do the entire climb and come down the other side, because there's nowhere to drop. So when you come out of City Creek, you're climbing that 6 miles. You could turn around, but once you get to the top, you just have to keep going. You can't drop until you get all the way to Elk Meadows. Similarly, if you pass South Scout, you're climbing Scout Mountain, and you're going down the other side all the way to Big Fir, because there's nowhere to drop. As you leave South Scout, you're looking finally at the final climb up Scout Mountain, which is a formidable mountain. It looks impossible to climb. You're staring at basically a cliff